Okay, in front of you, obviously, you see a picture of Donald Trump. Donald Trump, in his area of expertise, which is business, and in particular real estate, is outstanding. But just as Dr. Carson is outstanding in the field of medicine, Donald Trump is just like you and me, and maybe in some cases not as good as you or I. Whenever Donald Trump is questioned in detail about one of his proposals or statements, he always falls back to a general answer. Now, in this particular case, Mr. Trump is going to be asked about President Obama's executive orders. So I'm going to roll the CNN video and take it from there.
And at least another $2 trillion. So we're at $21 trillion.
You heard the President of the United States, 30,000 Americans die each year from gun violence, about half suicides. What would you do right now to prevent that kind of slaughter?
Okay. The first thing I do is protect the Second Amendment.
That's not an answer. He keeps talking about protecting the Second Amendment. That's not an answer to the question. He was specifically asked what would he do to prevent the slaughter. Talking about the Second Amendment is not going to help prevent the slaughter of 30,000 Americans on an annual basis, especially when it comes to suicide.
The second thing I do is I wouldn't use executive orders to do this. You got to get people. You know, our country was founded on the basis that you're supposed to negotiate back and forth with different members of different parties, and you come to a conclusion through negotiation and compromise.
And I would agree with you there, except it takes two parties to negotiate and compromise. President Obama has been more than willing to negotiate and compromise with the Republicans, but as stated earlier, the Republicans had a meeting and reached a concerted effort not to cooperate with President Obama. So how do you negotiate and compromise with someone who absolutely refuses to negotiate and compromise with you? You can't. So President Obama allowed Congress plenty of time to come up with their ideas about gun control. They came up with nothing, and finally he took it upon himself through legal means, because executive orders are mentioned in the Constitution as a power of the president, in order to do something.
You don't go and just keep signing orders, and all he's doing is taking chunks out of the Second Amendment. That won't happen. You know,
But
if in Paris,
like convicted felons or mentally ill people to be able to go to a gun any place, online or whatever,
well, when
and
you say,
get access to
when
a
you
gun.
say any place, we have very strong laws right now on the books, but the federal government does a very
gun
bad
shows,
job.
for example, you don't want
But
bad
that stops
people
a
to get
father.
access to
I
guns.
know, but when you get into the gun show, it's a slippery slope. That stops a father from giving
What
his
about
child a
online?
gun.
That is absolutely untrue. Gun shows are transactions between private parties. A father gifting a gun to his son is not the same transaction, and you are not required under President Obama's executive orders to have to obtain an FFL license in order to gift a gun to your son or any family member. That's why it's called gifting, not selling.
Purchases.
Let me just go a step further.
Because
We have to
background checks makes sense, right?
We have to protect the Second Amendment. We have no choice. We have to do that.
There he goes again. We have to protect the Second Amendment. There is no assault on the Second Amendment.
Very important. I believe in it from a
The
safety
President says he
standpoint.
believes in the Second Amendment too.
Well, I don't think he does, because and Hillary is a disaster. Hillary wants to take the guns away from everybody. I mean, Hillary's going to be worse than Obama. Hillary is, I can't imagine this. She wants to take the guns. You know, it's interesting. In California, when you had the two people, these two horrible people, shoot people that gave them a wedding party. These people that got killed gave them a wedding party. Anyway, they went in, they shot. If a couple of people in that room had guns, or if a couple of people in Paris had guns, you wouldn't have had 130 people or 14 people in California laying dead, with more to follow because you have so many people so badly wounded.
That is not true either. They have actually done studies with people that had guns on them in various settings, including classrooms, where an armed person came into that classroom and started shooting it up. And the people who had guns ended up being killed by that gunman. Now, if you expand that out to a movie theater where a person comes in and starts shooting up the movie theater, a person or several persons with guns being in that movie theater, even if they are trained law enforcement, more than likely will end up shooting innocent people in their attempt to stop a gunman if they start firing wildly in a darkened movie theater.
If people in Paris, as an example, which is the toughest gun control place on earth, they say, Paris and France. Now, if you're a bad guy, you can have a gun. If you're a good guy, you can't. If they had guns right here or right here on their ankle, and those guys walked in there and they started shooting, it would have been a much different story. So,
untrue.
You know, it's very interesting. So many people that believe in the gun control, when we have these debates, they always lose a debate to me. And then I call them up the next day, so how do you feel about it? Well, I still haven't changed my mind. I don't know what it is. We need the Second Amendment. We can't have it chopped up. But if it is going to be changed, it's got to be done through a process, not through executive orders.
And he's right if you want to make a permanent change, but in this time of Obama's last year in office, him having wanting to do something, he issued his executive order. Now, if the next president that comes in doesn't agree with him, obviously that executive order can be rescinded. So he is right. Congress needs to pass legislation in order to change the gun laws so that America can be a safer place. Nobody's saying to take people's guns away from them, but let's just make it harder for people who shouldn't have guns. And let's be specific and say that people with mental issues that shouldn't have guns have a harder time in obtaining them. Again, a criminal, if he's seeking a gun, he's going to be able to get a gun. There's no law, no nothing that you can do that's going to stop him if he's determined to get a gun. But for the majority of people, i.e. those that commit suicide, to make it harder for them to obtain a gun in order to commit that suicide is one of the main things that the executive orders would help to lessen.